Hallo und wunderschönen guten Abend. Heute seht ihr mich mit einer etwas anderen Optik. Ich habe nämlich unsere neue Mundschutz, unsere Mundmaske, unsere Schutzmaske, die gestern endlich nach langer Wartezeit bei uns eingetroffen ist, in meinem Gesicht. Das Gute vorweg, wir verlosen heute 3 Masken, also die 3 besten Fragen werden von mir auserkoren und die bekommen dann, wenn sie uns die Adresse bekannt geben, eine Maske nach Hause geschickt. So, jetzt ist genug mit der Maske, jetzt kommt sie weg aus dem Gesicht. Nochmals herzlich willkommen und schönen guten Abend zu unserer nächsten Drink at Home Online-Verkostung. Heute ist es etwas wirklich ganz Spezielles. Wir haben einen Gast, der sehr, sehr weit weg sitzt. Bei ihm ist es sehr zeitig, also es ist jetzt so circa 11 Uhr. Es ist der Chris von Left Hand. Und bevor wir zu ihm zu sprechen kommen, ganz kurz nochmal zur Erklärung für alle, die zum ersten Mal dabei sind. In euren Paketen habt ihr einen Verkostungsbogen, wo ihr kurz seht, welche Biere wir verkosten, kurze Notizen dazu und auch gleichzeitig die Reihenfolge. Auf der anderen Seite gibt es eine kurze Beschreibung zu unserem Gast und zu meiner Person. Und dann gibt es noch diesen Verkostungsbogen, wo ihr ganz einfach Notizen machen könnt zu den jeweiligen Bieren und die ihr euch gut aufheben sollt, damit ihr wisst, was wir heute getrunken haben. So, jetzt würde ich sagen, ist es Zeit. Unser Gast ist ganz speziell, er sitzt an einem ganz speziellen Ort und ich würde sagen, welcome Chris. It's a pleasure for me to having you on board for tonight for this tasting. And wow, wait a second. You're in Vienna? Chris, are you in Vienna?
I am.
Really?
Yeah, where is everyone?
Phew. So most of us are sitting at home, but that's funny that you are sitting in our store.
Yeah, where is everyone? You can even see I signed right there.
Yeah,
the left hand right there.
Yeah. So, no, it's a really, really, really nice background where you're sitting. Really good. Hello, because good evening, it's in Vienna. And what else you're wearing? So he wears a scarf. Thank you for that. I know that not everyone is a Rapid Vienna supporter, but I had Chris last year in Vienna, and Rapid Vienna is my favorite football team, and I gave him this scarf as a present. And so sorry for all those which are not fans of Rapid Vienna, but it's a really cool thing that Chris is wearing this scarf tonight, and also the T-shirt. So he stays behind us, he supports us the same way we support him and his peers. And now it's enough from my side. Chris, hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Never been better, if you believe that lie. I'm okay. I'm just excited to be here. I miss my friends. I miss having pints with people. So I think this is a really cool idea, and thanks to you guys for hosting me. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And I have to tell all of us and you that Chris was immediately in, and you have to think about the distance where you're sitting in Colorado now. The time is 11 a.m. So ready 1 hour before lunch, but now we have 1.5 hours to go ahead with Chris. And I would say the first thing everyone really wants to know at the moment is, how is the current situation with this COVID-19 virus? We know, we get all the information about New York, and they're really in a disaster, let's say, they're in really deep shit, and hopefully they will be better soon. But tell us a little bit, how is the current situation in Colorado?
I mean, we're better than most. So the U.S. 50 states, right? So I think we're the 18th ranked in terms of number of cases. I think we have about 12, 13, 14,000 cases. But I don't believe we're out of this yet. I mean, we've got 1 million cases now in the U.S. New York has 300,000 by itself. It's a pretty scary situation. I think we're not out of this for a long time. Thankfully, over here in Colorado, breweries are considered essential. So we're still making beer and packaging beer and shipping beer. And Unfortunately, we can't really do much about the rest of the country. I mean, bars are closed, restaurants are closed, just like there in Austria, and I think it's going to be a long time before those open back up and we get back to anything normal. But people are drinking at home, just like you guys are doing. So at least there's that.
Okay, so that sounds better than the guys in New York are doing, but in the end, yeah, it's worse for everyone. Brewery, tap room is closed.
Tap room, well, you can't come in to get a pint. I mean, it's weird because I'm sitting above right now, above our tap room, and but we're doing curbside pickup. We're actually delivering to people's homes, which is crazy. We've never been able to allow to do that, but we're delivering within a 10-kilometer circle around the brewery to people's homes. We can't do mail order. That's illegal in the US. So that business is stopped. About 30% of my business overall is draft, and that is pretty much zero. So I'm not selling anything to restaurants or bars. We're doing growlers and crowlers for pickup and that stuff.
Okay.
So I'm still trying to keep my staff employed as much as I can. And they're being awesome. They're doing as much as they can. They're excited about it. They're talking to people, obviously, face masks and gloves and social distancing, and you can't come in to grab the beer. We meet you outside with it. We have an online ordering, so you can order it. So we're trying to do and adapt as much as we can.
Okay. And you can see some increases on sales when it comes to cans and growlers. Is this business growing?
It is, but it's not enough to make up the difference in draft.
For sure not. Yeah. But on this other hand, it's growing and it keeps you busy a little bit, and there's some cash flow coming and going, and so that's also important, I think.
Yeah, we're down about 50%, which isn't great. So we've had to do some things with our staff. You know, we've had to temporarily lay off some staff. You know, salespeople really can't go out and see, accounts and that sort of things are not allowed in. So we've had some people go to part-time. We did get some financial assistance from the government. There's a big, what's called the payroll protection program loan. So we're able to do that for the next couple of weeks. So we're trying to adapt and pivot and look at our business differently, and what can we do to make sure that we're part of the solution when the economy gets out of this. But there's about 8,000 breweries in the U.S. And our Brewers Association over here did a survey, I don't know, a few weeks ago, asking about how many breweries can make it through. And I'm hearing 2,000 to 3,000 can only make it for another 4 to 12 weeks. So depending on how long this lasts, which I think it's going to last quite a long time here in the States, I think you're going to see several breweries, thousands of breweries close. Restaurants, bars, from what I'm hearing, 25 to 30% of them won't make it through it. So it's going to change how we do things. It's going to change how we go out. It's going to change how we drink. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, what we
Okay,
can
we
say.
got beer,
really,
man.
it's really
Luckily, we got beer to get us through this.
Yeah, no one knows. Yeah, it's similar in Austria, but we only have 300 breweries at the moment. But also our Brewers Association is telling, we will see how many will survive. How will keep going the business. But yeah, we will see. So, Chris, now we have to talk a little bit about Left Hand, which is the reason why we are in tonight. And tell us a little bit when you started, what you're staying for. You are one of the 5th best breweries on rate beer in the US, so that means something. You're independent. Tell us.
Yeah, so we started in 93. So 93 when we started, there was less than 400 breweries in the US. Now I said there's over 8,000. We've been in the top 50 breweries out of the 8,000 breweries the last several years. But I don't really care about being one of the biggest. I just want to be considered one of the best. I mean, we're a flavor-driven brewery. We always have been a flavor-driven brewery. So we definitely make sure that the beer that we put out, if it says it has raspberries on it, you better taste raspberries. But we're also trying to be a brewery that is focused on not just flavor, but quality. We don't want to send beer that we don't believe can last on a warm shelf for a long time. So a lot of the beers that you guys get over there, we make sure that they have good long shelf lives that we send over. So we make a lot of beers here in the tasting room, a lot of pilot beers that we just don't ship outside of the state, outside of our tasting room, really. So back in 2011, actually prior to that, 2008, 2009, I had a couple of accounts around the country here that were saying, hey, you guys make a milk stout. And I'm like, yep, it was our 4th best-selling beer at the time. And they said, could you try to nitrogenate a couple kegs for us? And we said, okay, sure, we can do that. So we did them manually and we sent them off. And the response was like, wow, that is really, really good. And then we started doing it here in the tasting room. We're like, wow, that's really good. So for a couple of years, we just did milk stout on nitro in kegs. And I remember sitting down with a couple of my production crew and I said, is there any way we can figure out how to do this in bottles? So it took us a couple of years. You should have seen it. I'll never forget. We were sitting in our tap room in one of our conference. We'd have hundreds of bottles out, all different kinds. And somebody cracked one of the bottles and the bottle cap, ding, 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 all over the space. And it took us a long time to figure out how to do it because we were trying to do it without a widget. And we talked with other companies about maybe doing a widget. And we said, man, we don't know if we want to do that. And right as we made the decision we weren't going to do it with the widget, the Big G, the brewery I'm talking with, decided they weren't going to do it in their bottle anymore with the widget either. So we were able to figure it out. On September 29th of 2011 at Great American Beer Fest down in Denver, we announced what we were doing. And that just all of a sudden put us on the map. I mean, nitro is over 50% of our business. We believe, we're one of the leaders in that category. I mean, give credit to where credit's due. That Irish brewery's done a great job. But we believe that we know we're the first American brewery to do it. Now we do bottles, we do cans, we do draft. We're just under 100 employees. We're employee stock ownership. So everybody here, when you work here for over a year, and you get part of to own part of the brewery. So we're excited what we do. We're excited. Our niche is nitro. I mean, we're going to try a couple nitro beers today. I mean, really what we're known for is nitro beers and dark beers, a lot of fruit beers now. We don't really play. I mean, we do IPAs, but we really don't play in that category. We know who we are, and we're happy with that. We're excited about that. We believe that's what sets us apart from most of the breweries. And I think in terms of, how many other nitro beers do you carry in package right now?
In package, so I don't know if you heard the news from Vasia. I had Vasia from BayWalk 2 weeks ago in a tasting, and he launched together with me his first nitro canned beer. It's a coconut porter, and it was super, super nice. Maybe I'm gonna send you some. I will send you some cans.
Okay, so BVOG did that?
Yes, but
you see, he came over for so we also do it's the world's only nitro beer fest. We do it in November of every year, and we actually had him over. Yeah. And so imagine coming into a fest and there's 60 or 70 beers on, and there's nothing but every single beer is nitrogenated. So it's funny because we invited him. We had brewers from around the world. We invited BVOG. We had a brewery out of Iceland. We had a brewery out of Ireland and Korea and China. And I tell you what, all of a sudden people come back like, oh, I don't know how to nitrogenate these kegs. Can you help us? So we help them. And then they go back to their countries and all of a sudden they come out with a nitro beer. So no, but it is what it is.
I know that.
He makes great beer. So I have a lot of respect for what those guys do. So I'm sure that beer is brilliant.
Yeah, and he already had a really long test period. He's rolled away so many cans, and now it's really, really perfect. So it's also without a widget. So it's really, really nice. To be honest with you, at the moment, we only have you, BayWalk, and there is a brewery from Poland. I introduced you to him, from Stu Mostov. They are doing nitro beer as well, and that's all we have at the moment. So only a few out of a really huge assortment. And last week I get a sample from Brewdog, from their brewery in Ohio. It's a coffee-infused stout. It's also a nitro version. So this jet black hard espresso, which
they do. I've been to that facility. That facility is ridiculous. I tell you, there's and really, when you talk about nitro beers, that's why the interesting thing, we'll start off with, one of our other beers. A lot of beers, darker beers that have a heavier, fuller body, definitely play well with the nitro. Nitro strips out flavor, right? It makes things rounder, smoother, creamier. And so a lot of times when you're playing with different beers, and most people go into that zone of a darker beer. I mean, Sam Adams, our largest craft brewer in the U.S.
Oh, 1 second.
Yeah.
Moses is watching. He's the manager from Brauhof. I know that you have also a surprise for the guys from Brauhof.
Okay.
Can you?
I do?
I think so. You have a special thing for the guys from Brauhof, from the hotel in Vienna.
Oh, yeah. Hold on.
So the manager
They're
is watching now.
that was one of my favorite things of all time. I loved that facility. So here, let me. There's my background. All right, is that better?
Okay, that's great. That's really awesome. So for all our listeners, so Chris was the first non-official guest at the new beer hotel in Vienna. So there's a really good connection between Chris and Brau Vienna.
That place is
people
awesome.
want the beer. Chris, now we have to open the first beer because there are so many people asking now, we need a beer. So we have to open the first beer.
Oh, I'm going to get rid of my background for just a minute. So that way you can actually see. So I'm actually sitting in my office. That way I don't lose anything. So, all right. So hold on. I got more props today. So give me just a sec.
It's fine.
All right. So, first beer we're going to have today is our Flamingo Dreams Nitro. Perfect. It is a pink beer. The best thing, I mean, the cool thing about, is there something on my face?
Oh, it's fine. It's cool. Maybe a little bit on your hairs, but the rest is fine.
If I could have hair, it would be like this. It'd be awesome. So Nitro, right? So cans. So the cool thing about a Nitro beer is that there's a widget that sits in the bottom. And I have one. Give me just 1 second. I'm going to grab it. All right. So this is a widget. I don't know if you can see that well enough. It looks like a little top hat, right? Mm-hmm. So this sits in the bottom of this can. And what happens is we fill the beer all the way up until about the opposite of this. And what happens is we nitrogenate it, we do a drip, and the nitrogen actually goes into this. What happens is, as soon as we do it like this, so the liquid fits to the bottom of this can. For 30 seconds, it stays upside down. And then it's put back over. And all of a sudden, all the nitrogen is captured in the bottom of this can inside of here. So it is captured by on top of it. And that, when you crack it, you get lovely, lovely sound. All of a sudden, the nitrogen is trying to run out of the can itself. It's trying to release itself, right? So the cool thing about having to stay at home, that you can actually, up until recently, until like the last 8 or 9 years, you couldn't get a nitro type of a beer at home. But now you can actually have that same pub experience right at home. So you don't have to pour this beer particularly hard because it's already nitrogenated. So you can just pour it straight in. Wait till that beer gets a nice little tight pink head. Man, that is just, that is bursting with berry notes out of there. Woo!
Cheers. So
we use black currant and we use raspberry puree. So it's a little bit, the taste, it's a little slightly sweet. There's a little bit of tartness on it. It's not extremely bitter. It's a medium bodied, but man, that nitro just really give you a really nice creamy notes to it. And it's interesting, when we made this beer, it was really difficult. We brewed 4 or 5 different types. It kept making rounds because the more black currant and raspberry, you had to be careful with how much you made because it would become too dark. And then it was like, you didn't want it to be too dark because it's called pink flamingo. So the head is actually a lighter pink. The body's a little bit more purplish, a little darker, but it's got a great medium flavor. But man, it's incredibly easily drinkable.
And it's refreshing. It's really nice, creamy, perfect mouthfeel. It's fruity. It's super nice balanced.
Yeah, and that's the thing about nitro beers. You can drink them all day long.
That's true.
Like, for instance, my wife, she's not a huge nitro fan. She actually loves the CO2, the carbonic, kind of bite to it. She likes the effervescence. But some people, they're like, have 2 or 3 beers, they feel full, and really that's because of the CO2 levels in the beer. For us, it's like, man, it just smooths it out.
Yeah, perfect. Chris, do you have any food recommendation which goes perfectly with this beer?
Wow. When I drink this beer, it makes me think about summer, right? Mm-hmm. I think about a really refreshing spring salad with this beer. You get strawberries in there, add some fruit to the salad. You get like I would do like spinach, and I'd throw some mushrooms in there, some strawberries, some sort of like almost like maybe tying like a raspberry vinaigrette into that. This beer would do brilliantly as your first beer of the night.
Maybe you can also add some goat cheese, something like this, which can also, the slightly tartness of the raspberry also can really go well with some slice of goat cheese into that kind of salad.
Yeah, that'd be interesting too. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's perfect. So Birgit comes out with the next question. Left Hand. Why the brand is called Left Hand? Was one of the owner a left-hander, or
No,
what is the reason?
Yeah, no, actually, it was we started out with a different name. We were actually, that thing's hot. As a bald guy, that thing's hot. No, we actually started out as a company called Indian Peaks Brewing Company. That's our parent company name, if you will. Because if you here in Colorado, we're right on the front range of the mountains, so you could actually see there's a place called Indian Peaks Wilderness, and we just in the U.S. we're very litigation. We like to sue each other for all kinds of things. So we were about to open up, and we got a letter from a local brewery down in Boulder that says we have an Indian Peaks Pale Ale, and if you guys open up as Indian Peaks, we're going to sue you. So luckily they did that. It worked out really well. We were able to change. So Left Hand, we went to Left Hand. It's actually a local Indian that lived in the area. Indians are named based on what their parents see from them first. So they were actually, he reached for his mom with his left hand. So there's a really famous Indian in this area. So there's Left Hand Brewery, Left Hand Creek, Left Hand Trail, Left Hand Mountain. There's a variety of things called Left Hand. So that's why we're named Left Hand. And it's funny, the logo actually came, which was kind of cool. The logo came when we first started to put our logo on top of, bottle caps. Left Hand Brewing got really, really small and you couldn't read it. So this guy came up with all these different images about, Indian themes and an Indian design blanket. And we just said, stop. We just want something simple. So the guy put his hand down on a piece of paper and traced it, and we cleaned it up, and that's how our logo became like that. So really, really clean and simple. Not a lot of market research, but I tell you, you go into a dark pub, dark restaurant at night, you can see that handle from a distance and you know who it is. So yeah, so not Left Hand. Some people think it's because we also have marijuana is legal in the state of Colorado. If you've ever heard of Left Hand cigarettes, that is not why we're named Left Hand Brewing, but that's another benefit of living in this state for sure.
Okay, cool. So Christian, now a lot of questions coming out.
Okay.
Tina Rogers is asking if it's the same beer which you put last year in Budapest, because you remember you with a pink beard.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. So that was the exact same beer we poured in Budapest. Yep.
Okay, Tina, that was a really good question. So please send us your contact details, and you will get the first mask. So Birgit comes out with a question. She's asking if the fruits are fermented, or you add the fruits during the lagering, or when the fruits came in, you ferment together with the fruits?
It honestly, it's a great question. It really depends. I'm going to switch one more. There we go. I'm back in the hotel. It depends on the beer. But this particular beer, we actually added in the fermenter before we pasteurize. So yeah, we're using a blackcurrant syrup and a raspberry puree. But we actually add it in the fermenter, not in the kettle. For the next beer we'll talk about, there's a little difference there.
Okay. And then Veronica is asking, is there only nitrogen or also some CO2 inside this can?
There's both. I mean, obviously the nitrogen is primarily a part. We consider nitrogen as an ingredient. For instance, like milk stout, one of the beers we'll taste later, we do both milks. I mean, the base beer itself is milk stout. It depends on how we carbonate. We have an inline carbonation unit here, so we're able to dial in the specs exactly what we want it to be. But the base beer, it's just how we carbonate differently. But there is going to be CO2, of course, in there.
Cool.
Good questions.
Yeah. Good audience. Good beers. Perfect conversation. So we can do the next beer.
Ooh, okay. Hold on.
Yeah, we are not in a hurry. So, weil Chris jetzt nochmal nach vielleicht einer Verkleidung sucht, nochmal der Aufruf, fragt. Heute ist die Möglichkeit, ihn persönlich zu fragen. Er wird Rede und Antwort stehen und die besten Fragen bekommen, wie angekündigt, die Maske. So, he's back now.
I'm back. So I'm on my our next beer.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a good connection. That's why you're dressed now like a.
Yeah, actually, I rode this morning. In the silver lining out of this is I'm riding my bike a lot. I'm riding. I just crossed 1,600 kilometers for the year, which is pretty cool. So we're a big bike culture here, hence the reason why I'm wearing this. So this particular beer, if you can see, it's a little bit different of a label on there. It says Team Left Hand and Bike MS, and it actually says on there, benefiting the National MS Society. And then we talk all about what MS is. So part of our culture, one of our core values as a brewery is to give back to the communities where we work, live, and play. It's a big thing for us to give back. I mean, if people are buying our beer, we feel like we need to help our local communities. So about 13 or 14 years ago, I had a friend of mine say, "Hey, do you want to do a bike ride this weekend?" And I'm like, "Okay." And then he goes, "It's 2 days, and that's a 2-day ride. That's a long way to go." And he said, and he goes, "Yeah. So what's it for?" And he goes, "Oh, it's for a charity for multiple sclerosis." And I was like, "Okay." So we basically made this beer first as a pilot beer for the ride. So we have 8 teams around the country now. We have about 600 riders that ride with us. I'd love to know if there's any cyclists out there. But we basically created a beer that we wanted to have really refreshing. So we did it as a pilot beer, and then we started packaging it. So this is it's a Gose, right? So it uses, once again, it uses raspberries. We use a lot of raspberries around here. We use lemon peel. We use a little bit of citric acid in it. So it's not nitro, which is good. It also pours pink. But it's going to be a totally different profile, than the Flamingo Dreams. So it's under 5%. It's incredibly drinkable. Man, you get raspberry as well, a little bit of hint of lemon for me.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually, so going back to the earlier question, we actually do lemon in the lemon peel in the kettle.
Okay.
To me, it's incredibly sweet. I get a little bit of the saltiness. We actually do the salt in the kettle as well. Definitely some sourness in there. It
should be sour, and it's.
Yeah, and it's the carbonation completely different. So I think because of its CO2 and it's not nitrogen, I really think that the raspberry is a lot more prevalent in this beer than the other one. You get that little bit of saltness. So to me, like after I go for a long bike ride, this is the perfect beer to actually to have. It to me, it adds back. We even talked about putting electrolytes in this beer to really make it to add electrolytes into your body after a ride. But we decided we didn't really want to screw with it too much because we feel like the beer is pretty brilliant. But we're trying to bring awareness to people that have a really horrible autoimmune disease. Since we started, we have raised 4.5 million US for the National Multiple Sclerosis Society through this. Through all of our teams. So we're trying to make a difference. And this is going to sound incredibly stupid and cheesy to people out there, but if every company did a little bit, something to help people out, man, this world would be so much cooler. So this is our little take on it.
Super beer.
Damn. Very tasty in my opinion. So questions on this beer?
Let's wait a second. If there are any questions coming out. No, but especially for really when it's really getting warm, hot and dry, then this beer, it's perfect for refreshing. And I completely agree, you know, when you have a really long bike ride and you need some power back because there's salt inside, there are some fruits inside, this sourness, this tartness, that really push you up again. No.
How many cyclists are on the call? Do we have any cyclists out there? Because I really want to come back to Austria. I want to do some bike rides out there. It looks stunning.
You know, there are a lot of bike riders in Austria because we have also this tour over Austria, you know. But I don't know if there is someone yet listening or watching who is riding his bike. But when you come back and you will have some extra time, then I will find you some really cool dudes which can ride the bike together with you. So
it keeps the beer weight off.
So
I didn't ride my bike. I'd be a lot heavier than I
am. Birgit really loves the beer. Then Latino Wolf, there's a German question called, was meint ihr bei der Verkostungsbogen mit Haptik? Eingangs gefragt, welche Haptik nennt Chris das Gose Bier? Also bei der Haptik, ganz kurz erklärt, bei der Haptik geht es mehr darum, ums Mundgefühl. Eben, ist es schlank, ist es breit? Wie ist die Kohlensäure? Ist die Kohlensäure aggressiv? Ist die Kohlensäure schön eingebunden? Das geht so. Also das ist damit gemeint bei der Haptik. Und ich würde dieses Bier beschreiben, es ist sehr schlank, es ist eine angenehme Perlage, also die Kohlensäure ist schön eingebunden. Und davon spricht man eben, das ist die Haptik, die wird so beschrieben. Ray Nile is asking about the proportion of lemon peel, raspberry, and salt per liter.
So our brew house is a 70 hec. So we have two brew houses, but our main production brewery is a 70 hec. So we do about, about 5 kilograms per 70 hec in terms of the lemon peel. And that's actually, like I said, that's in the kettle edition. In terms of the raspberry, we do, man, trying to figure out. So it's a 55-gallon drum. So we do 2 of those in the kettle. So what is that? 400 liters into that. Is that right? Top of my head. So 110 gallons per 70 hec. So I think it's like 400, 420 maybe liters of raspberries. So yeah, the raspberry is definitely big into that beer. The sea salt is about 3 kilograms per 70 hec. Was that the question you were asking? Or he was asking? She was asking?
Yeah, that was the question. It's a perfect answer. Now we get the first guy which is willing to do a bike ride with you, Andrew Höchstmann. So Andrew, if you really want to ride the bike together with Chris when he is the next time in Vienna, then please send us your contact details and I will let you know in advance when Chris is coming, and then you can do a bike ride together with him in Vienna. I promise you this. And you will also get the second mask. So you will get the second mask. Woohoo! You will get also the bike ride together with Chris. So Matthias is asking, is Gose a common beer style in the US? I just know it from Leipzig. So history-wise, it's an old German beer style.
Yeah, it was kind of a forgotten beer style, to be honest with you. There is an amazing brewery that kind of, in my opinion, is the one that kind of brought it back to fashion in the US. Do you guys know Anderson Valley? Mm-hmm. California brewery that's been around a long time. One of the, what we call them, the OGs, the original gravity breweries. They kind of brought it back to fashion. So it's starting to become more and more popular. Some people use lactic acid like we do. The first time we did it, we actually did a 24-hour kettle sour. But they're starting to become more and more popular. Sours are starting to become, I think they've been around for a long time. But in terms of the Goses, I think, I do have a funny story about this beer. I totally forgot. But they're becoming more popular. So it's interesting. When we came up with this beer, can I tell a quick story about the name of this beer?
Perfect. Yeah, of course. Go ahead.
Funny thing about this beer, I don't know how this works in Austria, but when you name a beer here in the US, it's very difficult because you have to trademark it. So if you want to come up with a beer and you want to make sure nobody else does it, you have to submit it to our federal government called the TTB to get the name. And then you have to get your trademark and all these kind of things. So there's a bunch of different hoops to jump through. But when we first came up with this beer, it had a different name. And the name, we tried to play around with the Gose name, right? We wanted to call it, since it's for multiple sclerosis, we called it MS Goes Away. Haha, right? Pretty funny, kind of cool. We submitted it to the federal government and they came back to us and said, you can't name it that. We're like, why can't we name it that? And they said, you are basically making a claim that if you drink this beer, your MS will go away. We're like, really? Are you kidding me? So they wouldn't let us name it that beer. So I was driving with some friends and we're trying to kick up with some names. We're like, what about Wheels Goes Around? And we're like, boom. So I like the first name a little bit better, but so yeah, that's what we had to go through to name that beer. Quite interesting. You guys don't have that, do you?
No, that so far as I know, not really. No, so far no. Really, I don't know. Maybe some of our listeners or the audience know it better, but as far as I know, I don't know that we have things like that in Austria. So
yeah, consider yourself lucky.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we are more lucky than you guys. Yeah, but what you can do. So there's a question: how you ferment this beer? With which yeast? Is there a yeast, or how does this beer ferment? This goes. The Gose.
I mean, we use our house ale yeast strain. I mean, there's nothing different in that zone. I mean, a lot of it, once again, if you're asking, I mean, we use lactic acid, like I said, we use that in the kettle edition. And then, we knock it out, and it's a 2-week turn beer for us. So, yeah. So what else did you want to, it's not a different yeast strain for us, if that was the question.
That was the question. That was the question.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Then I would say we can go, but you have to get out of the screen a little bit and have to change your clothes again.
Are we going to the next beer?
Yeah. If it's okay for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Man, I'm trying to have fun with these things, right? So hold on.
No, perfect. We have fun together with you, and that's the most important thing. And I'm pretty sure that most of our listeners are enjoying it a lot.
Alright.
Lassen wir uns einmal kurz überraschen, mit was diesmal zurückkommt, bevor wir.
All right, so this is my least interesting outfit of the day. But we did this whole thing like, pour hard, right? Because when we did bottles first, that was what you had to do. You had to, since it had no widget in it, you actually had to turn the bottle upside down to release the nitrogen. In terms of the can, you don't have to do that once again, because what did I do with that? Because the can has the widget in it, right? Mm-hmm. So, man, this beer, whew, I love this beer. If I could have one beer on a desert island, whew, this beer, you can actually see that cascade.
Whoop.
This beer is, you actually have the better glass than I do.
Yeah.
That glass.
I'm pretty sure you have the same glass somewhere in the office, but you're not found it yet.
That glass, brilliant. That's I'm a huge believer in Spiegelau, the company that creates those glasses. Oh my gosh, the how they build that is just absolutely stunning. You can really, I call it like a olfactory experience. It's like a cannon when you pull that up to your nose, right? I think that the glass is brilliant. So, milk stout, I mean, it's still slowly coming in there. You get that beautiful, dark, you get a little bit of rubiness in there, a little bit of dark. If you put a light behind it, you can see a little bit of red notes in there, but you get that beautiful tan head, right? I mean, look at that line. Woo. Line is brilliant. Brilliant.
It's really nice.
Fresh brewed coffee. Dark chocolate. Ooh. Man, very little bitterness to that. Now, this is carbonated alcoholic chocolate milk for adults right there. And, a lot of people ask, like, this is our #1 selling beer by far. It's, when you add lactose to a beer, it's like adding cream to your coffee. I mean, this beer just continually grows, continually shows with you. There are people that say they don't like dark beer. This beer right here is a game changer. And we use 8 different malts in this beer. We add a shit ton of lactose to it. I think there's a lot of people that don't realize how much lactose we actually use. We use a lot of lactose, but man, we use flaked oats. We use roll or flaked barley. We rolled oats to give that mouthfeel. But there is so much going on in this beer. I tell you, you asked earlier about beer pairings. This beer goes with so many different foods. I think a lot of people get, when they talk about like milk stouts, and they say, oh man, I'm going to pair that with a brownie, or I'm going to pair that with chocolate. Yeah, that's an easy way to go. Do like a Mexican, like a mole, a spicy mole is great. Take a scoop of coffee ice cream and drop it right into this beer. It is brilliant. Whoa. It is unbelievable.
Mm. Yeah, especially with an ice cube, yeah. Vanilla ice into it, and you get a perfect iced coffee. Yeah.
It's to me, it is the, and it's funny, going back to a question somebody asked earlier, they said, is this style popular? So the way this style came around for us, we started doing this beer in 1998, and it was a seasonal only. One of the guys who brewery had tried Africa, and he had beer from a brewery down there called Castle, and they had a Castle milk stout. And the milk stout, it was pretty much a forgotten style. There were two breweries in 98, 99 that were doing a milk stout here, but people were almost like, what is a milk stout? That sounds gross. Is there milk in it? Obviously there is not. There's lactose, which is a byproduct. But we came out with it. It became a seasonal. Then we finally moved it to package. It wasn't until 2011, 2012 when we did Nitro that it became our #1 selling style beer. But there's not a lot out there, but I can tell you more and more people are coming out with this style. We're seeing a huge explosion in this category, which is cool. But I think a lot of times people, it's hard to balance the lactose with everything that's going on in this beer. I think we've balanced it very, very well. I love this beer on Nitro because it just really just smooths this beer out. I mean, it's my biggest issue with this beer is I get about halfway through it and I'm like, damn, I'm already halfway through it. I'm going to have another one.
Yeah, that's true. No, it's really easy drinking. It's easy going. It's super nice balanced. And is it the best selling product for Left Hand?
By far. Yep.
By far.
Yep. Yeah. Ooh.
So in Vienna, we have this new bar which is called Hefenbrüder.
Okay.
And there we sold the first 12 kegs within, I don't know, 2.5 weeks, and people loved it, And so we are waiting to getting back a little bit to normality, and then we will have it there on draft soon back, and it's a super nice beer. And you were completely right when you were telling, that if people don't like dark beers, and then they get a hand on especially this milk stout nitro version, then it's a game changer for them, because then they're really into, it's coffee, it's milky, it's nothing really, because most of the people think, okay, yeah, that must be super bitter, super dry, but it's completely a different thing.
Yeah, and if I go back to like talking about that brewery in Ireland, once again they created. Let's give them props for creating nitro beers, right? It's a different beer. If people are used to I'd never tell people, oh, it's like that, because people say, well, I don't really like that beer, and I think that beer is actually pretty solid for what it is. It's an Irish stout. It's dry, doesn't have any lactose in it. To me, this beer is rich and creamy. It doesn't have any coffee in it. I think that's one of the things people ask, like, do you have coffee in it? We don't have any coffee. That all comes from the type of barley and the malt that we use. The other question people is, do you have chocolate in it? We're like, no, we don't have any chocolate in it either. We use chocolate malt. But that's where all that flavor profile comes. But a lot of people ask me, they say, well, if how do you get somebody to drink this beer? And my normal question, people are like, oh, I don't like dark beer. Hold on, time out. Why don't you like dark beer? I don't like dark beer because it's going to be bitter. Well, this isn't a really bitter beer. Do you drink coffee? Well, yeah, I drink coffee. Do you put cream in your coffee? Well, yeah. I said, well, you're going to love this beer. You like chocolate? Well, I love chocolate. We don't use any chocolate. It all comes from the malt. And then my favorite comment that people say is like, I don't drink dark beers during the summer. Do you drink coffee? Well, yeah. Do you like to grill out in your backyard or, on your porch? Yeah. Well, man, let me tell you what, porters and stouts are brilliant, brilliant beers with grilled meats. Oh my gosh. I mean, it's like, yeah, I want a big dark beer during the summer. I don't care what people say. Most of the time you're going to be sitting inside having dinner in an air condition anyway. So don't. I just blew any reasons why you're not going to drink a dark beer out of the water.
Yeah, that's true. I completely agree. So there's a question coming. Matthias is asking, does Left Hand export seasonal beers? I need that peanut butter milk stout.
Which milk stout?
The peanut butter. So I can give you also the answer. He exports seasonal beers, but we must be on time to pre-order it, on time to get some cases for the next time when the peanut butter beer is available again.
This one?
I think this one, yeah, you're right.
This beer, peanut butter milk stout, I'll tell you what, this is another beer that we're, like I said, very early on, flavor-driven brewery. We played with this beer. Going back to Flamingo Dreams, we probably dumped 6 different batches down the drain. Peanut butter, we dropped a lot down the drain because let me tell you what, peanut butter is very difficult. It tends to get into these big clumps, and you really can't get what you want. So we probably brewed 4 or 5 different batches of this beer until we got it right. Because really, when you drink a peanut butter beer and you smell it, you want to be able to smell peanut butter, right? So we had to play with it to get it right. We actually wanted to do it on, some people asked us to do it on nitro, but man, you want to talk about the nitro, since it strips flavors out, it stripped the peanut butter out. But based on the success, this was a seasonal only, based on the success of this beer, Marcus, we're actually making peanut butter year round starting in August, as soon as we get cans in. So yeah, it's going to be year round starting. And it is, if you ask me what beer I'm drinking right now the most of, it is this one. And actually we also do a raspberry milk stout as a seasonal. We're coming out with a bunch of different varietals: tiramisu, German chocolate cake, s'mores. We're playing a lot in the milk stout category. But if you take the raspberry and the peanut butter and you mix them, it's like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Okay. So, Matthias, perfect. From August on, it will be permanently available. So I can promise you, as soon as it's available, we're going to order it, and then you can get the peanut butter also in Vienna. Birgit is asking, what is your favorite beer after bike ride?
Man, I'll tell you what, after a bike ride, it's actually not a beer. And this is something that you and me, Marcus, are trying to figure out for the Austrian market that we're super excited about. We actually
I still have a can in my fridge.
We do a non-alcoholic CBD infused sparkling water. I have one of those after every single ride that I do, because it really it relaxes all my muscles. Like I said, I've ridden 1,600 kilometers this year alone. I drink one of those after every single ride. In terms of the beer, it really depends on kind of what mood I'm in. A Gose is usually my go-to. But man, if I've had a really long ride and I want to put calories back in my body, I drink a Wake Up Dead, which is a beer we'll try in a minute. So it really depends on what kind of mood I'm in.
Okay. Cool. So now we have Gregor from Bewok. He is a co-worker from Vasia, and he is writing once again, amazing beers. Milk stout is killing it. Yeah? Milk stout is killing it. So hello, Gregor. Thanks for the comment. But Chris, there's a good question from Julia. Julia is asking, you already gave some answers to this question, but so there is actually coffee and lactose in it.
There's no coffee.
But lactose is in it.
Lactose, yep.
Is it possible to compare it with wine, where aroma is just described in certain ways, but not actually peaches are in it?
I think you can describe it that way. I mean, I think it's interesting. For years, we never did anything fruit related in any of our beers, and now that we do. But I think that's a good way to look at it. I think it depends on the beauty about beer. beer by itself, there's a beautiful dance, right, between malt and hops. You can get fruit flavors out of hops today, which is crazy. You can get chocolate and coffee notes out of malt. So I think there's a variety of different ways. And, the wine industry always talks about terroir. I think the beer industry doesn't do a very good job about that. We should. There's so many great, a lot of the Southern Hemisphere hops that are coming out right now are brilliant. And they give these really great hoppy or great fruity notes out of it, right? Malt's the same way. It all depends on how you roast it, and what you're trying to accomplish out of it. But yeah, no coffee in that at all. I think a lot of people taste. Now, we do coffee beers. Oh my gosh, I love coffee. Oh, it's like if you've ever watched that movie, oh my gosh, it's a Will Ferrell movie here in the US, and he's talking about the beer the first time it hits your lips. For me, coffee and beer and tea, man, if you brew it, oh my gosh, it's like, I'm a firm believer. Like, I love coffee in itself. Like, I don't add anything to it. I love coffee for what coffee is. I love beer for what beer is. We're kind of laughing in the States right now. We're like, sometimes I just want a beer that tastes like a beer. So we have a new Pilsner that's coming out, here in a couple months. We're super excited about, because, it's funny for me, like when I go to a brewery that I've never been to, if they have a Pilsner on tap, that's the very first beer I'll try. You know why? Because there's nowhere to hide. You can hide a lot of flaws in a beer behind a lot of malt, a lot of candy sugar, a lot of hops, right? Pilsner, there's nowhere to hide. And if a brewery I go into and I taste a Pilsner and that Pilsner is spot on, man, I'm pretty confident that every other beer that they make is going to be brilliant. So if you go, I always watch when I go into a brewery, and I look to see where the brewers are standing. If they're at the end of the bar, at the end of their shift, I'm like, what are they drinking? That's the first beer I want to try, because I know that that's the one they're most proud of. So, it's funny, like I'll give you another story. So, and you're going to judge me on this, and I'm okay with that. So I went to Stiegel Brewery a couple years ago. I had no idea how big that brewery was. I drink a lot of their Radler on beaches back here. And I remember, I'm like, that's a 2.5% really low alcohol beer. Drank that beer on the beach. You can drink it all day. I remember talking to a couple of the brewers there as we're walking to the floor, and they're like, oh, you like that beer? I'm like, I love that beer. It's a great session beer. They're not drinking that beer when at their spot, but that beer I think is a great example of a beer that they do that they don't like, but the brewers aren't drinking that beer, but they're drinking their others. So anyway, I digress.
Okay, cool. Dina is coming out now with the second question. We will answer this question, and then we're going to go to the next beer. What is the advantage of using lactose? I've spoken to brewers who say you can use other vegan ingredients to get the same effect. There seems to be several different views on using lactose. Is it a personal preference, do you think?
Well, in terms of what? Like, there are people that are making hazy IPAs, right? New England IPAs, juicy IPAs that are using lactose. I don't like that personally. That's me. In terms of creating, so Milk Stout Nitro, we didn't name that beer because it's the style. If you look at the style and the history of that beer originated in the UK in I believe it was World War II. They were adding lactose into a beer that was 2.5%, 3% alcohol. And they were basically telling mothers to drink that as an option because you couldn't get milk. So the style actually calls for lactose. We use well over 100 kilograms, per 70 hex of lactose to make Milk Stout Nitro. It is a huge amount of lactose. So in terms of the style, we have to use it.
Cool.
Good questions, man. I love this. This is awesome.
Almost finished. This beer is almost gone. So, Chris, let's go to the next beer.
All right, hold on. And then let me see. Let me give you a different background. Here, I'll leave you with this one.
Oh, it's a perfect view on the brewery. Ganz kurz zu ein paar Fragen, die da gekommen sind. Kevin hat gefragt, den Namen von Crew Republic, den sie nicht mehr verwenden durften, weil es da eine Geschichte gab. Es war das Bier Detox und Detox wurde umbenannt in Hop Junkie. Nur zur Antwort zu dieser Frage. Jetzt kurz zwischendurch, aber es geht heute nicht um Crew Republic, sondern es geht... Okay. Welcome back, Chris. You are so funny. You're really the first guy who is really doing something different and special, you know, and that's what it all stays for, you know. That's the most important thing. People should have fun, you know, they should enjoy it, they should learn something, and you're the perfect entertainer, you know. Really, it's super, super nice having this tasting together with you.
I appreciate that.
No, it's perfect.
Yeah, so we're a bunch of metalheads too, even though I'm bald. All right, Marcus, I'm going to put you on the spot. Iron Maiden was my first ever concert when I was 13 years old. What was your first ever concert?
I can tell you my first ever football game, but I can tell you my first ever concerts.
Really? You should ask. Come on, people, tell me out there, like, you know, give me your first, give us some feedback. Who were your first concerts ever?
So,
and mine, Iron Maiden was if there are any Iron Maiden fans out there, it was their Peace Sells tour, or not Peace Sells, that's Megadeth, that's the next album. It's their it was the album that they actually recorded live after death. Why am I drawing a blank? Somebody help me.
So, Austria, tell us your first concerts you have ever attended. You know, first concert, music bands. Help Chris to find out the name of the first live album. Was it live?
It was Power Slave. That was it. I don't know why I was thinking it was Power Slave.
Okay.
Power Slave was my first ever concert when I was 13. I was shocked. It was also the first time I ever smoked marijuana. So.
Okay. So at the moment, no one is telling us any concert or music bands.
So the reason I bring that up is Death Before Disco. So there's a couple different movies out there that are cult classics. Has anybody ever seen the movie Stripes? You ever seen the movie Stripes, Marcus?
No.
Oh, okay, so you have homework.
Heiner Rogers, Bon Jovi, Steven Pantera, Ed Bank Austria Zelt.
Let's walk!
Bon Jovi, Matthias, Backstreet Boys. Oh. So they are coming now a few.
Yeah, right on.
Markus,
right on, man. Pantera was your first concert. Whoever that was, man. You're a badass. Nicely done.
Thomas, David Hasselhoff was his first concert.
Oh, Sex Bomb, man. That's Tom Jones kind of territory.
Johannes Campbell, yeah, Iron Maiden, first concert, Mary Queen, London. Armin, first concert, some gig with a lot of local bands in a sheet. The first real big one I remember originally was Propagafil. I don't know if you pronounce it right. I don't know. My first concert was Nena. So now it's coming. Rolling Stones, Hanzo, Joe Cocker, Offspring, Sex Pistols in Brighton. So
somebody saw Sex Pistols?
Yeah.
Hell yeah, that's awesome.
Sex Pistols in Brighton.
Oh, wow. What a show that must have been.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. So yeah, the reason I bring that up is because Death Before Disco, it's kind of that metal kind of tone, right? So we actually, the reason why I ask about if anybody has ever seen the movie Stripes, it's an American cult classic movie. So if you're bored and you're at home, rent this movie, download this movie. But it was actually, we named this beer after that movie. There's a actor named Judge Reinhold, and he was wearing a sweatshirt and it just said Death Before Disco. That's how we named the beer, because we're like, let's have a little bit of fun. So, I mean, this beer, I think porters are completely confused. porters and stouts, man. I mean, like you're right. Like if you know the history of porters and stouts, right? Like stout was just a bigger version of its porter, and for years it was like porters are straight up. You're not going to see a lot. You'll see oyster stouts and milk stouts and imperial stouts. You typically don't see a lot of variations on porters, but that's changed. I mean, porters are becoming. I think they're becoming less confused, but they're still pretty straight up. So this is actually this beer. This beer is a straight up, just straight beautiful porter, right at 6%. We don't really add any chocolate, any notes. I mean, it's got chocolate malt in it, just like milk stout. You know, we've got two different hops in there, CTZ and Cascade. It is just a straight up, in your face porter. You know, it's dark brown. You got that roast malt in there, dark chocolate. It's a little sweet, and it's really coming from the malt profile, right? Very, very little. There's a little bit of bitterness on the kind of the back end, but it's got that beautiful, like, in my opinion, great mouthfeel. Right now, I want a grilled brat. I want grilled vegetables. I want to be sitting in that hotel that you took me to. I want to be sitting on that back patio. And they barely had the kitchen open. That whole inside wasn't open yet. I want to sit on that back patio, drink a porter, and eat their food. That's what I want to do right now.
It's a good question now. It's coming from the brewmaster from a brewery from Austria, which is a gypsy brewery. It's called Brew Age. And
I know those guys.
Yeah,
I hung out with them in Austria, and I hung out with them. We drank beers together. I can't remember the pub, but those guys were awesome.
Okay, yeah. So why is that before disco not a nitro stout? Sorry, nitro porter.
Because we believe like you know, we can't do we don't want to do everything in nitro. And we're not really, we have done nitro porters before, but we believe, just like there's a difference between porters and stouts, since we're not adding any lactose or anything else to it, we feel like this beer is brilliant. That CO2, the carbonic, right? The bite to this beer, I think it plays out brilliantly. We think it would probably bring down a lot of those profiles to it. We think this beer is a perfect one to have on CO2. Man, that roastiness is just, to me, it really rises. If I had that on nitro, it would really drop it down, which wouldn't be a bad thing, but sometimes we believe that there should be a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the Brew Age guys, that's so cool. That's awesome. What's up, guys? Who is it?
Honzo, the brewmaster.
Awesome. Was he one of the ones? I think there was like 3 or 4 guys that drank with us one night in Austria. That was a couple years ago. Was he part of that group?
I think so too. Honzo, were you part of this group together with Chris? I think that. Cool, thanks for the explanation. But now, Honzo, were you part of this group together with Chris?
And refresh me the name of the pub that we were in. It was a little dark bar in the back corner. A mutual friend, Sharona, a friend of ours that lives in London, she actually connected us.
So yes, he was. Yes, he was. Honzo was part of the group. And Honzo, the next question is, what was the name of the bar where you met Chris? We went out drinking our nitro lager, so you had the great honor. It was Johnny's pub in the 4th district. Johnny's pub was it? And you.
I don't know if that's a good pub or not, but that's where we wound up.
Johnny's pub, and you were drinking the nitro lager. There's a nitro lager from.
That's what I love about this industry. I've been very fortunate in my life to travel the world for beer. And meeting people from around the world that, you know, just love beer. Beer brings people together in so many different avenues. It's so cool. Like when we do Nitro Fest and we've had, you know, BVOG and other breweries over. I mean, it's amazing. It's a great industry that we're part of, and it brings people together because what other product, you know, could you get together and, and brings people together. You're not going to get around you're not going to be like, oh, there's an orange. Let's get together over this orange. What do you taste out of this orange? Do you like this orange? You're not going to do that. Beer is going to do that. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
We're going to talk about Iron Maiden. I mean, come on. You're not going to be like, oh, man, I had that first orange at the Iron Maiden show. You're not going to do that.
It doesn't work. So Martin is asking, does Left Hand produce a Pilsner? We had this answer before. You will come out with a Pilsner.
Yeah, we used to do a beer called Polestar Pilsner, which was one of my favorite beers. Unfortunately, it didn't really sell that well. It kind of declined over the years. But we have a brand new Pilsner coming out called 1265. It's actually the address of the brewery. That's just launching here in the next. We're selling it out of our tasting room, but it'll go full distribution probably the next couple of weeks.
Okay, perfect. Birgit is asking, next question, and that's a question. Try to make it short and keep the answer short. What's the difference between porter and stout?
Aliens. Shit. The reason why I bring that up is because stouts used to be bigger versions of porters. It's kind of like bitters and special bitters and extra special bitters, ESBs. It's like triples and quads. Stouts used to be the bigger brother, bigger sister of porters. I think the lines are so confused today. I think people are all over the board. To me, if I had to say it, stouts are more like coffee and porters are more like espresso. I bet you if you asked, Marcus, man, I bet if you asked all your brewers, you would get really different answers. I think the lines are really blurred today.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So it's a good short answer because you can really extend this answer, and that's why I also ask you. So Markus Gatschneck is asking, what makes Rocky Mountain water special?
Okay. It's funny. So there's a little brewery down south of us called Coors, and they've been touting Rocky Mountain water forever. And I always wanted to put on our cans and our bottles, we also brew with Rocky Mountain water. So I think I would have gotten sued on that one, but it's just high gravity water. We actually picked the reason why we're in Longmont, which is about 45 minutes north of Denver. The reason we picked here is because of the water quality. Like I remember I went to Burton-on-Trent in the UK years ago. And, unfortunately, I got off the train. I'm standing on the platform. The train goes, and I see a big Coors, sign because they had bought the Bass Brewery there. And I'm like, wow, I have to come all the way to the UK to see, Coors in my backyard. We don't really have to treat the water. And Marcus, I don't know how many of your breweries do, but there are a lot of breweries that actually have to treat the water. We don't really have to screw with it. It is perfectly balanced for what we need. We very, very rarely have to screw with any pH levels or anything else. There are breweries around the world that have to mess with that. We don't have to.
So Veronica is coming up with the next good question. Generally, are there women in your brewer's team? I hope so.
I have two. We have about 40% of our entire brewery that are women, but I have two women brewers that are brilliant.
Okay, perfect. Birgit is asking again, do you also sell these beers in bottles? Or is the advantage when using cans?
I think there's pros and cons to both. So we used to be 100% bottles and draft only. We did cans about 4 years ago. I think cans have pros and cons to both. I think most of our business, about a year ago, we were a third bottles, a third draft, and a third cans. Now we're roughly, pre-COVID, right? We were 30% draft, about 40% on cans, and the rest on bottles. I like cans, but I also really like bottles. Like, I don't know how you guys are, but when I'm at home, I don't care what package it is. I'm going to pour it into a glass. I'm not pouring it into an aluminum container. I want to be able to see the color and experience the whole beer for what it is. So we only do milk stout and milk stout nitro in bottles. We do Wake Up Dead, which is a beer we'll try here next. We do some of our barrel aged beers in bottles, but more and more is going to cans these days. That's where people want to go and they want to see. And now that we have this little widget, we're able to do nitro in that too. But nitro bottles, milk stout nitro bottles outsell milk stout nitro cans still.
Okay. So yeah, still in Austria, because you ask, how it is in our market or how we see it, I can only tell you, that cans are getting more and more popular, but still bottles are doing better. Overall bottles, it's a bottle-driven market, but especially when it comes to the younger generations, to the millennials, they are already getting the clue about the cans, So I think that canned beer will be the future also in a market like Austria, which is a really traditional beer market.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing about cans, because most breweries that start today in the US anyway, they start off with cans today. But a lot of times they don't have the investment to put a real good canning line in. Like all of my equipment here at the brewery is either American or German. I don't buy Chinese equipment. I don't buy anything else but that. And like all of our packaging line is with KHS, which is a German company. Those guys know what the hell they're doing. And we prefer to go that way. I can tell you a lot of small companies do mobile canning units and those kind of things because they're cheap. And let me tell you what, oxygen is not your friend. Next time, pick up a can from a brewery and squeeze it. Oxygen is gonna, man. I had a beer last night that was incredibly oxidized, and I was so sad because I'm like, oh, I know this beer is brilliant. I've had it on draft. So you got to make sure, like, if you're introducing cans, man, and you can't close it off quick enough, and you're not getting the oxygen out, you're gonna have a bad beer. Same thing on bottles, right? But I think more people are going to cans because I can bring a mobile canning line unit in, and that's in the States. I don't know if that happens over there.
No, we got the first one. There is a company, it's called Albin Canning. They are based in Rosenheim in Germany, and they're driving around in Austria, in Germany, in Switzerland, and in Slovenia, and they're offering you that kind of thing, It's a new project for us here in Austria, but I completely understand what you mean, So yeah.
Look, shelf lives are important when you go to mobile canning units because they're traditionally going to package it quick. And you just have to be careful. I have 4 people in my lab to make sure that beers and full sensory lab and everything else. I would just, if you're going to drink a beer, from a smaller brewery that's going cans, try to drink it as fresh as you can.
That's true. I completely agree on that point. So, Chris.
Yes. Next beer.
Last.
All right.
Beer.
Hold on.
So Birgit, ganz kurz, der Chris ist jetzt weg. Aufgrund deiner vielen Fragen, und die waren wirklich alle sehr gut, bist du die Nächste, die eine Maske von uns bekommt. Und ich würde dich bitten, dass du mir oder uns deine Adresse zukommen lässt und wir schicken dir eine Maske.
All right. Next beer. Next and last beer.
Johannes is asking you, what's your favorite Iron Maiden song?
Ooh, man. My favorite Iron Maiden song. Man, this is going to sound corny, but like typically when I want something to pump me up to go, it's the Trooper, man.
Okay.
Not the beer, the song. But there's so many. Oh my gosh, there's so many. But yeah, if I had to pick one, I'd say that one right now.
What is your favorite beer? It's difficult to answer that kind of questions. What's your best song?
So this, by the way, is the hoppiest beer we're going to drink today. Oh, I'm going to turn my background off. Or I could go to this one, which that's not pretty. Sorry, that's a Netflix movie back here. So Wake Up Dead. This is the hoppiest beer we're going to taste today. This beer, holy cow, I don't even know where to start on this beer. We were doing this beer. In the first time we brewed this, it was just called Left Hand Imperial Stout. We were brewing this beer back, I want to say 98, 97, maybe even 96. we were doing this way before people even knew what the hell an imperial stout was. So it's a double mash. We do 2 mashes on this beer. It takes us about 4 months. Man, there's so much going on in this beer. I mean, gosh, it is black as night. Man, I get dark chocolate, obviously. You get the roastiness. Man, there's like licorice. I get like dried fruit notes out of this beer. Wow. You get that alcohol burn towards the back. This is over 10%. This beer, we do both in CO2 and nitro. This beer's got so much going on. So the reason why I'm wearing this shirt, going back to the metalheads in the group, if you know who this guy is, Dave Mustaine. So I remember when Dave Mustaine got kicked out of Metallica way back in the 80s. You know, why do we have this beer? If you know their second album, Peace Sells, there's a song on there called Wake Up Dead. And we didn't name it for him because I'm sure that he would sue us for it. But we actually were sitting in a pub and we were saying like, hey, we need to actually name this beer. We need to rebrand it. One of the guys at the brewery was talking about a story of a guy that was working in a warehouse and a keg fell off of a pallet and hit him in the head. And he lived to tell the story. And somebody said, wow, man, that guy woke up dead the next morning. And I'm like, there it is. That's the name of this beer. It's Wake Up Dead. So once again, we have a lot of albums, a lot of music influences here in the brewery. So this beer is incredibly dangerous. I'm always a big fan of Belgian breweries when you have these big, huge beers that are over 10% and they don't taste like 10%. I think this beer is incredibly dangerous. It's got so much going on to it. This is my end of beer, end of night, kind of sitting there. I love to pour it into a big snifter, right? And I just sit there and sip on this beer all night. There's so much going on in this. Like, it's like chocolate covered espresso beans. So imagine this, if you want to, and not use none of this in the beer, but imagine grabbing some chocolate covered espresso beans and you grab some black licorice, right? And you put that in your mouth together. That's what you're getting out of this beer. Maybe even like maybe throw some like cranberries or raisins in that mix. I get all of those notes out of this beer. As this beer continues to warm up, oh my gosh, you're getting so many cool notes out of this thing.
It's really, really complex. And even it's fresh because we got this for the first time, I don't know, 2 months ago. So it's super, super fresh. And I already have some bottles in my beer cellar and I will keep it.
It says 5 years. This beer, you can sell her for 5 years.
And already the best before date is 2nd of April 24. So.
And this beer has a long life. When we actually do it on nitro, we say it's a year because the carbonation levels start dropping. Yeah. But man, this beer, I absolutely love this beer. It's kind of a cult classic over here. We don't make it all the time. We make it once or twice a year. It's a very complex, since it's a double mash. We actually came out with another beer called Galactic Cowboy. That's basically it's a 9%. So it's a little less in alcohol, but it's a single mash, not a double mash. And that beer just launched here 2 months ago. But this beer, man, I'll tell you what, there is a cult following for this beer. And we use 7 or 8 different malts in this. We don't use, there's no additions, there's no sugars, there's nothing else. Here's the crazy thing for you guys that know, in terms of IBUs and bitterness, this has 50 IBUs in it. And the reason why is because we have to balance out all that malt profile in there.
I can imagine.
So Give me some questions, man. Throw some questions out. Ask some fun questions. Come on.
So Gregor, again, the guy from Bayburg is asking, what's the style most fun to brew? And which beer of yours are the most unique or the biggest challenge for you?
So what was the first question again?
What's the style with the most fun to brew? So what's the most funny beer you ever brewed?
Ooh, oh, man. Most fun beer we've ever brewed. Man, we've made some really fucked up beers. Man, we've done so many. We made a white stout way before it was cool to make a white stout.
In which year?
Boy, that was probably 5 or 6 years ago. And I remember the first time I ever had a white stout. I remember drinking it. I'm like, okay, this is a joke. It's like an April Fool's Day. There's no such thing as a white stout. I remember drinking it going, it took me a good pint and a half to figure out. I'm like, how in the hell did they do this? So we created one, and it all had to do with the roastiness of the malt we were using, right? So we actually we made a white stout, and it's mind blowing because if you close your eyes and you drink the beer, you get all this roastiness and coffee out of it. But when you open your eyes, you're like, man, it looks like a friggin' pale ale. It's crazy. So that was a long time ago. We did, I know it seems like it's pretty passe today, but we did a fresh hop beer for the first time in '97, way before anybody else was doing it. Just like this Wake Up Dead, we were making this way before we were doing it. We did a beer called TNT. Yeah, it's an AC/DC song. We created it. It was called TNT. And let me tell you what, it did not sell worth a shit. I thought it was so crazy. So a Weizen Doppelbock, right, is the base beer. So you get all this crazy, like, weird notes, banana, right, and everything. And then we use this tea called, if you're a tea drinker, we use this tea called Lapsang Souchong. So it's a black tea that's created over open smoke, right, over open fires. So you had all these crazy notes coming out. You had tea and you had smoky notes and you had banana. It was this total train wreck that came together. And that's why we called it TNT, right? It was this explosion of flavors. I remember sitting down, you guys familiar with like the Beer Advocate guys, the website, right? Sat down with those guys. Remember having them taste that beer and they drank it and they're like, this is the most fucked up beer I've ever had. And they're like, this beer is so far ahead of what anybody else is doing. So it didn't sell well for us. Now, granted, if a brewery like Dogfish Head would have made that beer, it would have been awesome, right? But for us, it didn't sell that well. So we've had some really, really crazy, weird beers. Okay. So what was the second part of that question?
What was the most unique or most challenging beer that you brewed?
So that might be for the brewers on the call. When we installed our new brew house back in 2008, if you guys have ever brewed with rye malt I love rye malt, man. I love the super tanginess, that gets out of the rye malt, right? But when you brew with rye malt and you mill it, it gets really, really fine and it gets pasty. We brewed a beer with a brewery that's now owned by Miller Coors. It's a brewery out of Georgia called Terrapin. And we were doing this collaboration back and forth every couple of years until they sold. But the first beer we came up with was a rye beer that used 50% rye. It was brilliant. Oh my gosh. If you love rye malt, we called it Terrorized. And it was 50%, I think it was like 55% rye. Brand new brew house, first beer we ever did, completely boiled over. We had, we couldn't get anything going in the entire. We actually came up with a term called undersparging because, man, the paddles just wouldn't work. Like we couldn't get it. It was so friggin' pasty. I think out of the 60-barrel brew, I think we got maybe 20 barrels we could actually package. but that beer was frigging brilliant. If you like rye malt, it was brilliant, but oh my gosh, what an absolute disaster to brew.
Okay, got you. Honzo, can you hear me? Yeah. Yeah, Honzo is asking if there is a barrel aging program going on at Left Hand.
Yeah, we actually we have about 100 barrels. We actually did a beer called 25+1. So it was our 25th anniversary 2 years ago. And we did a 14.5% Imperial Stout. And then we actually racked it into barrels. So we have that going. We've been selling that for a bit in single 12-ounce bottles. But we are doing it slowly, but it's only going to be really, unfortunately, here at the brewery.
Okay. Gabriela, if I remember right, is asking, what is a white stout?
So imagine a pale ale with roasted coffee. So it gives you if you close your eyes and you drink it, you feel like you're drinking a stout because you get those coffee notes and all that sort of thing, but it switches it. And when you open your eyes, you're like, wait, this isn't a stout. Actually, a year ago, well, back in August, I was down in Argentina and I brewed a white stout with 2 other breweries down there. And we picked the coffee. We actually tasted the coffee, and it's interesting. So you basically add the coffee, you infuse it in, but you drink it. It does not look dark. You're getting all the roastiness from the coffee, not from the malt bill.
Mm-hmm.
So you've never had one like that over there, right? All right, if the BVOG guys are still on, we're gonna make a white stout when I come over next.
You can do that together with people. Yeah, that's a good idea. So, what is the next question? One of the last questions we will have tonight is Christina is asking, do you think a beer flavored with carrots is possible or tasty?
Man, I don't like carrots, so I'm like, why the hell would you do a beer with carrots?
That's the answer.
But I'm sure that there are people that do it. Maybe it's from like a carrot cake perspective. I mean, man, I've seen some really weird beers out there. I don't know. I haven't, like we have a beer out, like there's some weird beers, right? Like I think it's pushing the limits. Try it, right? If you're a home brewer, why not try it? Like we have a brand new beer out that's called Getting Tiki with it. It's a beer with coconut and pineapple. But carrots, I don't know. But the Getting Tiki with it could be quite fun. Let me see. I have oh, here you go. There you are. It's a pina colada. It's called Getting Tiki with it.
That's the newest beer.
Huh? We're just releasing it this week. Yeah.
Okay, because I saw it quite often on Facebook. I know that these crazy guys from Omnipolo, I had them yesterday.
Yeah.
They launched 10 days ago a carrot-inspired Imperial Stout. So soon there will be a carrot-inspired beer available in the Austrian market because we will get some cases of this beer to Austria. And then
interesting. And
I can let you know. And then also, Christine, you can taste it and let your friend know.
Interesting. That's the beauty about beer, right? You can brew with all kinds of ingredients. You can't do that with wine, right?
That's the point. Gabriele, to your question, I don't have any white stout at the moment available in our store. Unfortunately not, but Chris promised us next time when he's coming to Austria, he will make, if Vasia agrees, a white stout together with him. So
I'm totally in. You just got to find the right coffee roaster. We got to find a roaster. That's the key.
Yeah, we will find one in Austria. So coffee is really popular in Austria, so it shouldn't be too difficult to find a good roastery to get the right coffee. So I think, that's the last question for tonight.
Okay.
No, wait, hold on a second. Rainel, wird es this tiki pina colada beer also will be available, beer lovers. Yes, if we can order it, then it will be available, but give us a little bit of time. And the last question of Beergate for tonight is it possible to brew a beer with marijuana?
With what?
With marijuana?
So I did a beer years ago with some Japanese that came over, and it was called Grasshopper. There's a marijuana shop right down the street from us called Native Roots, and they wanted to go down there. I tell you, so we do have marijuana tourism here in Colorado because not every state is legal. And they were all super excited. And let me tell you what, if you don't smoke marijuana on a regular basis, and you try to go in with hitting a bunch of different things, it can affect you in a big way, right? So I've had so many people that come out, they're like, oh, I'm going to try this, I'm going to do a gummy and that sort of thing. And then they can't walk 2 hours later. We actually have people that come into our tasting room, they look totally fine, and they get through half their pint, and then they can't walk out of here. And we have to pull their pint back from them. We're like, where have you been? Have you been down the street? So technically in the US, it's absolutely illegal to do. You can't make a beer with marijuana. You can make it with CBD, but that's still a little bit sketchy too. There's a couple breweries that have been doing it for a while that are using it, and they have to definitely jump through some hoops of making it actually, because you have CBD and you have THC. There's two differences, right? The THC is going to be what you get you high. The CBD is going to more relax you. There's still a lot of questions about what you can do on that. Us, our federal government's telling us not at this point.
Cool. So it's the same in Austria. It's not allowed. Even your CBD infused water is not allowed yet in Austria, but hope it will be anytime soon available.
I hope so.
Cool. Yeah, we hope so too. Chris, I want to say thank you again.
Yeah,
thank you for this really, really funny and really interesting. That's the most important thing. It should be always fun, but on the other hand side, we also have to learn something, and you teach us really, really well. It was a pleasure again. Maybe you have some words for the Austrian beer community, for the beer geeks, before we went out and say goodnight.
I just want to say, for a company that's about 100 people in the middle of the country in the US, for you guys to even know who we are or even want to drink our beer, it means the world to me and to my employees that you're even willing to try us and drink our beer. So, from the bottom of my heart and all the employees that work here in Longmont, Colorado, thank you for everything that you guys do. Thanks, Marcus. Thanks for drinking our beer. There's so many choices today. You don't have to drink ours. So I just want to tell you guys thank you. And the next time I come over, I'd love to go for a bike ride. I'd love to go to a show. I'd like to hang out. Man, I'm an extrovert, so check on us, man. We're not well in this new world.
Okay. That's a really special cap. You gave it to me last time when I was over, and every weekend when I go to the bakery, because that's my part, and most of the people don't know me with a cap or with a hat. Every weekend, every single weekend when I go to the bakery, I wear this hat since I got it in September. So, Chris, thank you for that great evening, the great tasting.
So, thank you. Cheers. Cheers, everybody. Thank you.
Danke für alle, die heute zugeschaut haben. Ganz kurz noch eine kleine Werbung in eigener Sache. Es geht weiter. Nächste Woche, am 5. Mai, haben wir die Verkostung mit Andreas Urban wieder und dem Braumeister aus der Hirter Brauerei. Es geht um die dunkle Seite Österreichs. Am 7. Mai, am Donnerstag, das wird wieder ganz speziell. Da habe ich Karel Boon zu Gast, also den momentanen Besitzer von Boon aus Belgien. Wir werden eine Gose-Lambic-Verkostung haben. Und am 12. Mai auf Wunsch, es hat eine Umfrage gegeben von uns, welche Brauerei wünscht ihr euch? Und da hat Next Level gewonnen und deshalb natürlich machen wir das möglich, haben wir am Dienstag, den 12. Mai, Next Level zu Gast für euch. So, in diesem Sinne wünsche ich euch einen schönen Abend. Danke fürs Dabeisein. Ich hoffe, es war wieder interessant für euch. Und in diesem Sinne stay safe, drink at home, gute Nacht und bis zum nächsten Mal.